So I would like to inform you that we have interpretation available in French and Spanish for this event. Please click on the icon at the bottom of the screen that looks like a globe. It says interpretation. There you can select your language. I would like to ask our Spanish interpreter to maybe explain this in Spanish.
Para acceder a la interpretación en español, por favor seleccione el icono abajo de su pantalla a la derecha con forma de globo y seleccione el canal de interpretación de su idioma preferido.
Thanks a lot, Patricia. I would like to ask one of our French interpreters to please explain the same thing.
Bonjour à tous. Vous avez donc l'option de choisir votre langue pour écouter la session d'aujourd'hui. Donc, vous avez un petit globe en bas de l'écran et vous pouvez sélectionner la langue française pour entendre donc en français cette réunion. Merci.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, welcome again, everyone. A couple more introductory remarks. Hope you all have sorted out your interpretation channel. So this webinar is hosted by the Gender Hub of the Green Livelihoods Alliance, and that is a group of people made up from each Alliance member of GLA. I am also a member of the Gender Hub, so quickly to introduce myself, my name is Jeanette Cicada. I'm from the Global Forest Coalition, and we are a partner of Women Engaged for a Common Future, WCF. Of course, WCF is the gender technical partner for GLA2. You will be hearing more from us about gender over the next years. So a couple of guidelines and reminders for our event today. Please keep your mic muted during this event when others are speaking. We would also like to have a safe and learning environment for our discussion today. So let's respectfully interact with each other in the chat and in the breakout rooms. Let's use welcoming and inclusive language with each other. We also encourage you to interact in the chat box below. And I see that people are already doing that. Good evening, Titi. Also, if you have questions, do put them in the chat. We will try to answer them as we go, the team here. We will also have a panel discussion later, and you can type in questions in the chat too. So next slide, please, Tedos. To continue with introductions, I would like to invite you to please rename yourself in the participants list. So you do that by going to the participants list, you right-click your name and you click rename. There, please write your name, your organization, and your language. You can see how I've done it. It's very important because later on we are going to do breakout groups and we need to know what your language is. So hope everyone is doing that right now. Rename your name, your organization, and your language. English, Spanish, or French are the options for today. So now we're going to play a short introductory exercise because, of course, we want to see who's in the room today, who's in our meeting. This exercise, you're going to have to use your video for. Yes, okay. I'm going to explain a little bit. Basically, you turn on and off your video depending on your answer to the next questions. So when your answer is yes to my question, then you turn your video on. And if it's no, then you turn it off. And then have a look at your screen and see how other people are answering. The idea is just to see who's joining our meeting today, okay? So I hope it's clear. So turn your videos on if you are joining from Africa. Hello to our people joining from Africa. Yes. Lovely. And turn your videos on if you are joining from Latin America. Turn your videos on if you are joining from Latin America. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Juliana. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. All right. And turn your videos on if you, so you can turn your videos off now to those people who are who have already gone. So turn your videos on if you are joining from Europe. If you are joining from Europe, I'm on. Hi everyone. Okay, and turn your videos on if you are joining from Asia.
From here.
Anyone from Asia? Only one person, only two people. That can't be right. Oh no, I have to keep moving my screens. There are so many people joining from Asia. Welcome everyone. Great, and if you can turn your videos on if you are from a country partner. A country partner. All right, there's lots of you here. Welcome. And lastly, turn your videos on if you're not a country partner. So then an alliance member or something else. Yes, let's see who's in the room today. Lots of us. All right, great, thank you. Thanks for your participation. It was really nice to see people's faces and to see that many of you are coming from different regions. And just in general to have a look at who's participating today. We have another interactive exercise for you. It is a Mentimeter. Tedros, if you could put up your slide, if I could now invite everyone to interact with us a little bit more. We have a question for you. We want to get more into the subject and the content of today, which is gender and inclusion. This question is, in a few words, why do you think it is important to incorporate gender in GLA to work? So to answer that question, you go to menti.com and use this code, or you can click on the link that one of my colleagues will paste in the chat. If Tedros could please share the slide to show the Mentimeter results so we can see the word cloud. Great, here is the question. Please type in your answers and we would like to see this word cloud form. You might have to refresh, Tedros. The code is 29212201, or you can click on the link that Audrey sent in the chat. And the question again is, in a few words, why do you think it is important to incorporate gender in GLA to work? I'm not seeing very many responses, but that's because I think there is a technical issue. So I'm going to share my screen. Tedros, can you stop sharing? And I'm going to share my screen because I can see things happening. There we go. Can you see my screen? Can everyone see the word cloud forming?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's looking beautiful. So why do you think it's important to incorporate gender, inclusive, justice, equality, ensure participation, fairness, legitimate, equality, knowledge, empowerment? Oh, there's just so many and I can't see. Reach our goals. No GLA without gender. We have to confront extractives, balance, governance, to be effective, equitable conservation, sustainable. This is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for participating, everyone. You can continue to add to that. And we're going to try to secure that and come back to it later. I'm going to stop my share. Thanks, Tedros. You can go back to the slides. So a quick introduction to our program for today. We actually have quite a bit in store and we're really excited about it. First, we're going to have a presentation of the key findings from the gender assessment report that was recently carried out. This will form a little bit the basis for our discussion. Second, we are super excited to have a panel discussion with GLA partners from Indonesia, from Uganda, and from the Philippines. Then what will we have next? Breakout groups. This is an opportunity for everyone to participate and talk a little bit more about next steps and how to build on the recommendations. And then we're going to have a short film from NTF-PEP Philippines, excited about that. And then we're going to do a quick summary and closing with a graphic record. So I wanted to quickly explain and introduce to people what that means. We have an artist joining us today, Sonaksha. Maybe you could introduce yourself, Sonaksha, show us your video and tell us a bit more about what you're going to do today and how you're going to try to support us and capture the learnings from today's meeting.
Everyone, I'm Sonaksha. I'm a graphic recorder, illustrator, and book designer, and I'm currently in India. So I'll be listening in on today's conversations and drawing as we go along. And the idea is to basically capture key moments and highlights from the discussions and create a visual map of sorts for everyone to refer to and to also keep as a reminder of the conversations that were had today. So I'm really excited to listen to all of you and create that piece.
Thanks, Sonaksha. Thanks for joining us. And we're really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. So that's our program for today. We have a great lineup. So without further delay, I would like to move on to the presentation of the findings of our gender assessment report, which is what we're here for today in our gender and inclusion webinar. So we are all curious to learn more. So I would like to invite Frédéric from IUCN NL to take us through the key points. Frédéric, a kind reminder to please speak slowly for our interpreters. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Hi, everyone. We're all very excited to be here today. And as explained, I will give a short presentation of the outcomes of the gender assessment, which will be a good basis for the discussions later on. I will just, do a short flyover and a lot of details and super interesting information is left out. So I would really like to refer you all to a very lovely report, Gender Assessment. I think you have all received it by now. It's the almost final version and really it's super rich, so I can really recommend this read. So today I would like to discuss a few points, the outcomes. We will do that with and share some of the great achievements which we have done. We will do that in our panel discussions. So I'm going to step over this point and I will dive into the key lessons learned, the gaps under GLA 1 and the recommendations. Next slide, please. So in sum, the assessment of the gender work under GLA 1. So we had a slow start. And during the MTR in 2018, there was the recommendation to really increase our gender work and have a systematic gender approach that was really needed. So then we had we started off the gender trajectory in 2018. And since then, things started to move. And finally, we really laid a good ground basis for GLA 2. So if you look at the landscapes also and also the work done by partners, you see a big variety. And we will discuss this more elaborately during the panel discussion and the breakout groups. Next slide, please. So there were several lessons learned I will just highlight a few of them. And one sort of basic thing, which is very important, is that the mere attendance of women does not mean equal participation. So it doesn't automatically mean their voices are heard and they gain influence as well. So this is really important to remember. Also, it's important to include gender equality and gender incorporated in the work from the start, as it's very difficult to incorporate it later in the program. Thirdly, it takes a very long breath. So to really address deeply rooted cultural norms and power imbalances, it takes a long term. So we need to have patience and time investments to make sure that we reach what we want to reach. And finally, South learning proved to be a very successful way to work on gender. Next slide, please. So there were a few gaps under the GLA 1 gender work. I'll just stick to the main ones. One is about the baseline and quantitative data, which was missing. And that proved very hard to really get an insight of the benchmark and the scale of the work that was being done. And secondly, that relates to the significance of the effects of these interventions. So, you know, when reporting was done, it was not clear whether it was, whether youth was involved or women. And for instance, when it was about reporting on access to land or forest management, it was not really clear whether or not women were part of the decision making, if the outcomes, if they contributed to gender equality or not. And really, did women gain equal access to land? So these, you know, it stayed on a high level and it was not really clear what was the actual effect. Next slide, please. So then we're coming to the recommendations, and we have different kind of recommendations. So first of all, actually the key point was really to have a systemic gender approach in the work. And 4 ways to do that is applying a twin track approach, so that you're working on gender mainstreaming within the program, and but also as empowerment. And so it's really a complementary way to increase gender equality and women's empowerment. A second recommendation was to increase the gender ambitions and to really go for a transformative approach, which means not only working with the systems we're living in, but also really actually addressing structural changes, looking at power dynamics and making sure that yeah, women's rights are that they're part of a gender just world. Then it's, and this is really a call also upon you all within the plans to be developed, to make sure that gender is also, that you have a clear gender objective in your plans, in your work, that you work with specific gender outcomes, that you work, for instance, with a specific gender TOC, that you have a specific gender vision to really make sure that you incorporate gender in the work. And lastly, an important part is also that you're working from an intersectional approach. So it's not just men and women, but it's also looking at marginalized groups within marginalized groups. So looking, for instance, at the single-headed female household, or that young indigenous boys are included as well. So really look further than just the sort of men or women. Next slide, please. And then we have 2 other sets of recommendations. So one is also looking at the activity level. So, and that's what is to not really do gender activities for doing them, but really making sure that the activities, that they are specified, that they are linked to the actual gender needs, the actual barriers that were found, and the opportunities. So to make sure that it's an integrated, logical whole. And secondly, looking at gender in the PML. And so, like I said before, you know, to really get clear insight of what's going on and what kind of results have been achieved by whom. Did women really take part in decision making around forest governance, for instance? And thirdly, on gender and lobby and advocacy, that when you're really pursuing your lobby targets at policies and legislation on sustainable forest governance, make sure that they become gender just as well, and that you promote gender equality also within the forestry lobby goals you have. And then finally, recommendations for the organization. And we're working on this in the gender baseline, so this will all come in the next few weeks and months, to do a self-assessment as an organization, to make sure that the capacity within the organization on gender is strengthened, for instance, through South-to-South exchanges. And finally, it's very important to also gain gender expertise in the organization, have a gender budget. And last of all, it's really about commitment. If we're not in this together, then things won't change and happen. So this is the last thing I would really like to stress. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Frederique, for that presentation. There's just so much rich information that you've mentioned, making structural changes, using an intersectional approach, a call to partners to integrate gender objectives and outcomes in their country plans, that when we lobby for forest policies, that they promote IPRC rights and inclusive governance, but also gender equality. There's just so much. I can't repeat anymore. So thanks a lot. Tedros, if you could share your slides, we're gonna go from this to the panel discussion, because Frederique just talked about the general findings from this assessment that we did that applied to all countries. And now what we would like to do is to have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion with particular GLA partners to hear more from them about their own context and their own experiences. So we thought that would be very insightful, and that we would like to focus this discussion now on challenges and lessons learned. It is such a learning opportunity for all of us to be able to hear from our fantastic panelists on how they've tried to address obstacles. And of course, just a reminder to everyone before we go into this discussion that we are all on a learning process. We're all working towards gender equality and towards inclusive structures and equitable organizations, but it's not easy. We cannot, and we would not criticize each other, because everyone and all organizations have challenges that are also locally specific. But what we want to do now is learn and deepen our understanding, refine our approaches based on what we've analyzed, on what worked and what didn't work. And we want to strengthen, our path towards greater gender ambitions. So we're very grateful to have a glimpse from the following panelists on how this has been for you and your organizations. I would like to introduce them if they are able to put their videos on. So today we have Diana Nabaruma, who is the Senior Communications Officer from the Africa Institute for Energy Governance in Uganda. We have Olivia Melendres, the Area Coordinator from the Sierra Madre Landscape from NTFPEP Philippines. We have Jusupta Taragan, the Executive Director from NTFPEP Indonesia. And we have Liliana Jaragai, or you're going to have to pronounce that, Liliana, I'm sorry, who is the senior expert for environmental justice at IUCN-NL. So I would like to see if I can see the speakers, if they put their videos on. Yes. Great. Yes, I see people. So I have one question to begin for each of you. And then what we will do is ask our audience to type questions into the chat for our panelists. So please, audience, I hope you can interact with us, write your questions in the chat, and we can pose it to the fantastic panelists after this first round of reactions. So let's begin with Olivia, if you are ready. Olivia, the first question. So based on your reflection from GLA 1, what are the one or two biggest challenges and important lessons learned based on your country experience in the last 5 years? Go ahead, Olivia.
Good evening, good morning to everyone. Based on our country report, one of the biggest challenges during GLA1 is really working with the government. For instance, at the national level, we advocated for green bills such as sustainable forest management, indigenous community conserved areas, land use, alternative mining. These are called green bills. But instead, government has different priorities. The government passed the Anti-Terrorism Act in 2020, which resulted in shrinking civic space for CSOs and IPLCs. Second, we observe that there is still gender-based conflicts among and within IPLCs. So for instance, there is inequality with the representation of women, men, and youth in the indigenous political structures and IP communities. And this has resulted to difficulties in terms of decision-making, livelihood, and assertion of rights. So what we did for the lessons learned, we saw that IPLC's inclusion in forest governance is a long social, political, and economic process, but it is undeniably crucial. So by inclusion, we would mean that women, men, and youth should not be left behind in as far as protecting and managing apes. So for GLA1, we already started the formation of IP women's organizations so that their interest and agenda will be included in their overall plans in their ancestral domains, communities, and also in dealing with the government in advocating for their rights. Later, you will see the videos of women's group called Kagat, where you will witness that IPLC women can also lead campaign in terms of protecting their ancestral domain and their communities. Yeah.
Thanks, Olivia. There's so much rich contributions there, and thank you also for also bringing up this issue on representation of gender in political structures, the unequal representation that currently exists there between men and women. So of course, and lots more that you said. So thank you for that. I would like to ask the same question now to Diana Nabaruma. I hope that you are here. I think that you are. If you could also please perhaps share with us, based on your reflection on GLA1, what the biggest challenges and important lessons learned have been based on your experience. Diana?
Okay, thank you. You're going to kindly permit me not to turn on my video so that I can have a better connection. The video usually interrupts the connection. I hope that's okay, that I can just use only audio. Is that fine?
Go ahead, Diana, go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. So, I'm going to share about two key lessons that we learned. The first was that it's very important to plan for gender, to have a gender lens right from the beginning of when you are planning for your program. Because, we have a saying that when you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And in Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Nigeria, and Netherlands. We had partners from all those countries, and under the GLA1, we were working towards realizing a pro-people and inclusive just energy transition to clean energy in our context, because we realized that the lack of access to clean energy was contributing to the high deforestation rates in our countries. And you know, while we worked with women and youth, we were very specific in the Ugandan context to work with women and youth. We, at a program level, following the assessment, and as Frederique has shared, what was shared is that we were not very specific with our planning of what gender outcomes we intended to attain, and you know, that sort of thing. So what we learned specifically is that from the get-go, you need to plan. You need to have outcomes on gender. You need to have interventions that will show you that you're attaining, you're attaining the outcomes you're seeking to attain. Then the other was that, you know, something that's under the GLA2, which is nothing for us without us. We learned that when you work with women and youth, you attain many more achievements than you would have if you didn't work with women and youth. I'll share about the Ugandan context. Unfortunately, women in Uganda are still kept in the domestic sphere because, you know, Uganda is a patriarchal society. So women have great domestic energy needs. Then we have the youth who are expected to work because they're energetic, and these are largely the male youth. They're expected to go out there and work, and they need energy to work. The predominant economic activity in Uganda is agriculture, and to increase outcome, to increase outputs, to increase productivity, and to ensure that there's value addition, there's a great need for clean energy in Uganda, but clean energy access, and especially of grid energy access, was low by the time we started out in the program, and it's still low at the moment, but you know, some achievements were attained. So what we did when we started the program is that we targeted women and youth, having realized that they have the greatest clean energy needs of the population in Uganda, and we sensitized them. And when they saw the importance of clean energy, how clean energy would reduce the burdens, the domestic burdens that women have, how clean energy would increase incomes for youth, then the women and youth took it upon themselves, first of all, to increase clean energy access at household level and also for productive use. But they also engaged, the women and youth engaged their local governments to ensure that these local governments provide off-grid clean energy. And we also worked with the women and youth to influence policies at national level. So the two key lessons that I would share about would be that plan. If you don't plan, then you're planning to fail. Then the second one is that nothing for us without us. If we want to attain gender justice, then we must work with women and youth. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Diana. Thank you for your contributions. And yes, your two lessons, plan and nothing for us without us. So great insights. Thanks. And I would like to ask Liliana, perhaps if you could introduce yourself, and perhaps you could also respond to this question on the biggest challenges and important lessons learned based on your country experience.
Thank you so much, Janet. My name is Liliana Jauregui. Sorry about my name, but it's Spanish, difficult to pronounce, but Liliana, it's fine. And well, I want to start with a challenge that we have to work with in the GLA1, and it's still a big challenge for the next phase, is that the situation that extractive industries play for forested landscapes, but specifically on women. And GLA did a good work in Bolivia trying to make an inventory and a mapping of the situation of women human rights defenders in the defense of the territories in a specific area. And this systematization was very rich to have this information available. And I think that it was a challenge to do it because it was the first time, but it paid off very well because it was important to have for international processes. So that's still a challenge, and we will have to cope with that in the GLA2 process. A very important challenge as well is what Diana said, that not having a clear goal from the beginning that's specifically related to gender and a shared vision of the local alliance, in-country alliance about gender, really complicating things a lot, complicated things, the collaboration, but also the strategy of the alliance around gender. But despite that fact, I want to stress something positive, is that partners started working together. So they started doing things around gender. And one very good result is that they found themselves in the international advocacy arena, delivering very good results. For example, they presented in a coalition contribution to the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review on Bolivia, with specific cases and recommendations for women human rights defenders. And a second trajectory, which was very impactful as well, is the CEDAW, is also a treaty body from the United Nations. CEDAW is the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. And Bolivia presented 2 questions to the treaty bodies related to climate change and gender, specifically on women environmental human rights defenders and the impact of industries on them. 2 cases from the Chaco, and it was done in a broad national coalition, but also with an international coalition. So that was for us a very interesting lessons learned that, well, first of all, you have to, of course, plan and have your targets from the beginning of the program. But sometimes when you start doing things, you can also find yourself in an interesting coalition also at international level. This coalition also delivered very specific results for women on the territories. For example, the same group of women from the area in the Chiquitania is an area in Bolivia that was mapped as one of the first activities I described. They also were very successful stopping a campaign from the government that was pretending that a certain group of indigenous groups, women, was supporting a project from the government that was supporting the extractive sector. So to have women organized was made possible that they also identified this danger and they could act on time. So I think that GLA1, despite the fact that was not from the beginning planning to act, planning specific goals on gender, I think that after the GLA1, we have planted a seed that could be now used further to really convince the alliance that working on gender with specific targets is really more effective than not doing so from the beginning.
Thank you. Thanks, Liliana. Thanks so much for that analysis and for taking us through the process that you've been through and what the key lessons were. Thanks a lot. And I would like to ask Jusupta Tarigan, the Executive Director from NTFP-EP Indonesia. Perhaps you can also share with us a little bit about the challenges and lessons learned. Thanks.
Thank you, Janet. So I am Jusupta Tarigan, but you can call me JT from Indonesia. Yeah, based on our discussion among tree landscape in Indonesia, so it is difficult for me just to explain 1 or 2 the biggest challenge and also the lesson learned, because we're working on 3 landscape plus the national level. So yeah, but I can start with the biggest challenge for Indonesia is 2 things. One is the woman involvement as well as the participation of the woman in the forest governance, and the second is about there is still a resistance due to the social norm and also the values to involve a woman in the program. Yeah, but based on our discussion among the GLA1 partners in Indonesia, yeah, we also seen that there is still inadequate capacity, yeah, and low self-esteem, which is this is sometimes cause the reluctance to get involved in the decision-making process of the forest governance. We seen also the lesson learned, in Indonesia. If you like to change a pattern and political leadership in the village, yeah, and in related to the development system, which is often affect the process of women involvement in gender responsive and development activity. Yeah, another thing that I would like to share is to change women also need to educate and inform men to build their understanding, yeah, and become agent of gender change. I think this is also very important in case of Indonesia. And related to the gender assessment, I think the integration of the gender and youth in research and share, yeah, a research finding with all landscape actor will be improve awareness and action. So I think regarding to the GLA assessment, I think this is still related, yeah. And our lesson learned in Indonesia is communication is very important, very important in clarification, yeah, project objective, intervention, and goals of participation. This will provide win-win outcomes for the community of the landscape, and also to strengthen engagement with the stakeholders concerning gender and including the youth. Yeah, in Indonesia during the GLA1, so some of our partner we use the strategic to create awareness and also capacity building, and particularly on the gender aspect, how to improve and also access to finance, etc., and improvement the women engagement in the program of GLA. I think that's all for our big challenge and also lesson learned, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you. You've just given us so many rich insights. I just want to draw out how you mentioned the issues of capacity and self-esteem as being one of the several barriers for women to decision-making, political decision-making, but also how you mentioned men as being agents of gender change. So thanks a lot. Thank you to all of our fantastic panelists for sharing your reflections on that, Olivia, Giuseppe, Diana, Liliana. We have a couple of questions that were posed in the chat. However, I would like to ask that our panelists, particularly Liliana, there were a few questions for you, if maybe you could respond to them on the chat itself, because actually we have the breakout groups next, and the idea is that all of our 100 or so participants joining today can be inspired by you, by our panelists, and what you've shared with us, the richness, the lessons learned, all of these obstacles and how you've tried to address them, that now we can go into groups and discuss that further. So if people do have questions for our panelists, maybe you can write it in the chat, and then we can ask our panelists to respond to you in the chat itself. That would be really appreciated. So thanks again, Giuseppe. Thanks, Liliana. Thanks, Olivia. Thank you, Diana. Thanks. Tedros, would you please share the slide on the breakout groups? Great, thank you. So everyone, let's continue this discussion. It's your turn now to to chat with each other and to really draw on these reflections and to think forward. How can we propel ourselves on gender in GLA 2? So a couple of guidelines before we just send you to the breakout rooms. Please make sure that you've renamed yourself, that your language is in your name. Please, in your group, please designate a facilitator and a note taker. It is really important that the note taker can use the Google Doc. There are 3 Google Docs that will be pasted into the chat now, one in English, one in Spanish, one in French. So if one note taker can please paste notes of your discussions into the Google Docs, because of course our illustrator is capturing everything that we are all saying now to put together a one reflection piece. So please take the notes. Here are the 3 guiding questions, and we have 20 minutes to talk about them. I'm going to quickly read these questions and then you're going to be sent to your breakout groups. So identifying reflections, learnings, and insights that apply to your country on gender in from the last 5 years. Secondly, let's look forward. So discuss and propose possible strategies to implement the recommendations that were presented in your country, but also in thematic programs. I understand that there are people here who are also part of those. And the final question, what is the key change on gender outcomes you want to see in your country program or thematic programs? So I would like to now invite everyone to go into their breakout rooms. Don't forget the Google Doc for the note taking. Please assign someone to do that. Thanks and enjoy. To exchange, to learn, and to discuss also going forward the future. So I would like to, for a reflection, since we had so many breakout groups, we have asked 3 people from our team to report back from the English-speaking breakout groups, the Spanish-speaking breakout groups, and the French-speaking breakout groups. So they are going to report back some of the key points that came out of it. They are basing their report back on the notes that you took in the Google Doc. That's why that was very important. And I'm seeing some comments that it was too short of a time. So I understand it. I'm sorry about that. I hope that you will understand that this is just the beginning of our discussion, and we invite you to keep having these discussions. So I would like to start with the report back. I would like to first ask Audrey from WECF. Audrey, if you can report back from the French-speaking group some of the key points that you captured.
All right. Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm going to report on what I've heard and what I've read from the 2 breakout groups in French language, and I believe our partners were mostly from DRC. So to the first question, one of the key points was to be clear on the terminologies and the definitions that were used when we talk about gender integration and when we talk about different concepts such as gender equality, gender equity, whether or not youth is integrated within gender. So this is, those concepts have to be made clear. in the program development, but also in the implementation of the activities. And another important point was the representation of women. They have a strong role and they have really potential in this program, but there are barriers which are related to culture or customs that need to be broken in order to be able to integrate women better in the program. Then on question 2, one of the aspects that was mentioned was the laws. So laws are not necessarily discriminatory in themselves, but not in their application. So we have to monitor as well and to hold government accountable on how those laws are being implemented. And also there is capacity building to be done, particularly among women's groups, so that they can understand better the laws that are adopted and that they can use them as well for their advocacy work. And then for the third question, one of the points that was raised was that it's important to have good representation in local governments of women and on underrepresented groups. Also good to have representation in entrepreneurship and also in high positions. So for instance, seeing women presidents or vice presidents. And it's also in that same idea, it's important to have role models in society, and also important that those role models can also be gender experts. Thanks.
Thanks, Audrey. That was extremely insightful. I hope I can ask Juana now to report back on the 3 key points that came from the Spanish speaking groups, and just a request to, keep it concise, Juana. Go ahead.
Thanks, Janet. Concise. The first thing, the lesson learned is that in the case in my group, especially in Bolivia, is that sometimes we go to our communities with a nice intention to help or to change gender situation, but we don't know actually how is the gender situation there. So this is a big challenge that we need really any capacity, and we need to know, increase our knowledge and capacity, how is gender relations actually in the locality. The other lesson learned is there are nice laws and legislation at the country level, but it doesn't work. These laws are not applied at the community level. So why was that? So the strategy, one of the 2 strategies related to this lesson learned is to increase capacities of the staff of each organization, and also to set up very good the baseline and with very good goals and also achievements, what we want to achieve after 2, 3, or 5 years. That should be clear. And also there was a nice recommendation that we should work more at the local level with the authorities in such a way that they can also help with implementing these nice gender laws, gender sensitive laws. And finally, the last question related that how would you like to see your organization after the end of this program, is that at least we could implement our strategies and our baseline and also implement our recommendation. That was.
Thank you, Juana. Thanks a lot for bringing that in. I would like to ask Tess, please, who had a very hard job of trying to summarize several English groups. Go ahead.
Yes, there were 10 groups, so it's difficult for me to go through, and I was in one of the groups, so I have to get out of that group and look around. So for the first, I can see the trend because like for the first question, most of the answers were that gender was not incorporated from the planning at the start, including the TOC, and it was not clear that women should be included at the start. And then another is that sensitivity to the norms of local communities, which is, we know, the patriarchal environment in the community. So that stops women from, or limits women from participating in the different programs and projects. So because of that, voices of women are not also heard. So from planning stage. And there's lack of disaggregated data at the start, which is also difficult for the program to look into the impact of the program on gender. So it was also mentioned that there's underreported gender outcomes. So for the second question, the key changes on gender outcomes they want to see in GLA 2 country and teams, there's also a trend. One is the participation of women. There should be meaningful participation of women in all activities, including decision making. And there should be explicit mention of differentiated impacts on men and women. And the capacity strengthening comes up also, so which also should include women and youth. And the involvement of men also to be part of the process so that they understand how to help women participate meaningfully in programs and projects. And there's also a mention about the level of development of root organizations on gender awareness and actions. So I'm sorry, that was the third question. So the second question is on possible strategies to implement recommendations. So the strategy is to have a good analysis at start, capacity strengthening, taking capacity, and have male champions, and then entrepreneurship or enterprise development, and then engage governments, which was also mentioned in the case and the presentations of our panel. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tess, for doing that job of trying to capture the lessons learned from over 10 groups. I hope everyone had some meaningful discussions. I think there's so much that's come out from there, especially Tess has highlighted gender in planning from the beginning, also youth participation as we talk about inclusion. So I hope that was just the start of several discussions that I hope can continue at the country level. We still have 2 weeks of planning to go, and we really wanted to time this workshop so that it could help you in the next weeks putting together your plans. So now we have 2 other very nice surprises for our meeting. So we have a lovely video that we would like to show you from NTFPEP Philippines to also highlight the voices of Indigenous women and Indigenous women's organizations. So I would like to ask my colleague who will share the video. This is a group from Sierra Madre talking about livelihoods, how they're organizing as a group, and also COVID. So I hope you will enjoy that. Thanks, Tedros.
Nakita namin sa aming mga pag-uusap na mahalagang mabuo ito upang iisa ang aming boses na maipakita namin kami ay nagkakaisa at nagsusuporta lalo na sa kagubatan na nais naming pangalagaan pare-pareho. Dahil dito sa hangad namin na mapangalagaan ang sagradong lugar ng bundok ng Irid at iba pa naming mga sagrado, ay sinikap namin mabuo ang aming samahan na ang tanging layunin ay protektahan ang kagubatan, mapaunlad ang kabuhayan ng kababaihan.
Bali po yung kagat ay nabuo siya noong November 11, 2019 para magkaroon ng isang samahang pangkatutubong dumagat remontado. Ang isang naging challenge ay nang lumabas ang kababaihang grupo na hinahanap ng mga kasundaluhan. Dahil sa pagkakataong yun, kabubuo ng samahan na kagat, ay kami ay na-intel, na pinuntahan kami sa mga bahay-bahay namin. Masakit para sa amin yun, pero hindi kami pinanghinaan ng loob doon. Pinakilala namin si Kagat, pinakilala namin lahat ng tumutulong, lahat ng mga kapartners.
Ang malaking hadlang po sa amin dito sa Daraitan ay yan nga pong kaliwadam. Sumabay pa itong pandemic na nangyari sa ating buong Pilipinas. Hindi naman dito lang, kumbaga buong mundo. Nahihirapan ang aming kababaihang lumabas ng kanya-kanyang area. Kaya madalas nagmi-meeting kami na nasa pamagitan na lamang ng cellphone sa Zoom. Ngunit hindi kami gaano nakakapagtagal ng pag-uusap at malalim na napag-uusapan ang aming mga issue sa aming mga lugar. Ito yung naging pamamaraan na lang namin ay ang Zoom meeting na pinipilit naming magkaroon ng pag-uusap kahit malayo kami sa isa't isa upang mapag-usapan namin kung ano ang mga susunod na hakbangin.
Biglang dumating ang pagkakataon sa Kagat, kailangan ng mga taga-syudad ang pagkain mula sa kabundukan dahil sa hindi makalabas or makapunta sa bawat palengke dahil nga bawal silang lumabas dahil doon sa issue na mayroon tayong pandemic sa ngayon. Agad namang tinugunan ng Kagat yung presyo ng mga product. Challenge yun sa amin. Ang pinakamalaking challenge talaga sa Kagat base sa pagnenegosyo ay paano i-manage ang isang negosyo.
Sa panahon ng pandemic, ako pa rin yung magtuturo sa aking mga anak. Akin na nga yung ikabubuhay. Ako pa pala ang magiging teacher ay napakahirap po. Ang sinasabi sa akin mismo, ng aming mga kinukunan ng mga katutubo rin na kasama namin, huwag kayong tumigil sa pamimili kasi sa inyo lang kami nagbibigay. Kasi nga po, medyo mataas yung aming bili sa kanila. Ibig sabihin po, mas nakakaabante sila. Kaya sana po, ang Kagat ay huwag panghinaan ng loob. Isa na po ako. Hindi po ako nawawalan ng pag-asa. Babangon at babangon ang Kagat para ipagpatuloy ang negosyong ito.
Sa ngayon, hindi pa man kami rehistrado pero piniproseso ang aming pagre-rehistro para kilalanin ng mga kinaukulang ahensya ng gobyerno, ganun din sa iba pang mga suportang grupo.
Bilang kababaihan kami, nakatutubong dumagat ay ngayon na natutuwa kami bilang kababaihan na hinihikayat magnegosyo, wag lang or magtanim ng sobra, hindi lang sapat para sa pamilya, para makapagtinda at magamit sa pagpapaaral ng mga anak. Maibili ng kung ano ang pangangailangan ng aming mga anak hinggil sa pag-aaral, sa kung ano pa man ang mayroon. Gusto ko sana bilang mayroon din namang mga ahensya tumutulong sa pangkababaihan. Makita yung kagaya namin na porsigido na tumulong sa community, tumulong sa samahan, tumulong sa consumer, walang iiwanan. Bali sila lahat ay pantay.
Thanks so much. I think we had some interpretation come into the room, but maybe that helped with understanding the subtitles as some people couldn't read it. But thank you so much to NTFP EP Philippines for sharing that video with us. In that video, we saw the strength of this women's group to organize, to try to practice their livelihoods, despite being investigated by armed forces, despite COVID. It's so inspiring. I'm really glad we were able to show this. So thank you so much again. So we're about done, but before we go, I would like to show you the illustration that our wonderful Sonaksha has compiled to try to summarize the amazing and rich work that we've done today. Sonaksha, maybe you can share your screen and show us a little bit everything that's happened in the last hour and a half.
Yes, so I'm going to show you a time-lapse video so you can see as some of it comes together. But please know that this is not yet done. A lot of the breakout group discussions are not yet captured here because there was so much going on. So we'll finish that after the session and share that with you. But in the meantime, here's the rest of it. So I hope you can see the video.
Wow, that's fantastic. That is so beautiful. So Nasha, maybe you can just, can we see the a still shot of the end of it so I can just quickly talk through people, a couple of the key points. That was so beautiful. So today we talked about so much. If you look at the left, we started with the findings and the gaps of the gender assessment report. And here's a summary. We have attendance of women doesn't necessarily equal participation. And Sonaksha also captured the recommendations at the activity level, at the organizational level. She captured also the panel discussion and all the key points that came out from our amazing panelists. Thank you so much. And then the breakout groups, of course, we had just started, we had just finished with them. So Sonasha is still working on that, but here you can already see some of the key insights that were captured. So I hope that this beautiful visual by our wonderful artist here can also help us as we go through and planning, and also to have a more of a visual, a picture of the journey that we're on. So thanks very much. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. We've had very, very rich discussions, and it's only the beginning. So we will see each other again, and we will continue on our journey towards gender equality and inclusion in forest governance. So thanks for joining, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks to our interpreters, our panelists.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
See you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Yeah.